or the odds as well. Okay, here we go. All right. So, this is section 1.5, which is angle pairs. So we are looking at number one. It says we're determining if it's true or false, and then we're supposed to explain. So we got angle 2 and angle 5. So one way you could do that is just literally come over here, angle 2 and angle 5, just kind of label them like that. And the question is are they adjacent? And you guys all said the answer is no, right? You guys said no. They're not next to each other, right? But here's my question. Who can explain to me why they're not adjacent? And this goes back to the definition. Another piece of advice I want to give you is if you know your definitions and theorems in this class, it's going to be a walk in the park. If you don't know them, guess what you might want to make sure you bring next week for the quiz? You might want to bring some notes, because on the quiz, I'm not going to let you use your book, or your Chromebook, I should say. Yeah, why are they not adjacent? Okay, that's one way to say it. If you look at the definition, in fact, let me go to the definition here real quick. Back here in my presentation, 8.5, and I think it was right here. Adjacent angles are two coplanar angles with a common side and a common vertex, but no common interior points. So when we go back over here to this, do these two angles have a common vertex? Do they have a common point right there in the center? They do, so they have that. Do they have a common side? They do not. So that's why these are not adjacent. No, and I would say because no common side. So that's why it's no. I'm going to do number 2 now. I'm going to ask you guys. In fact, let me go back over here again. I went over this one already, but let's do it one more time. I'm going to go back to this presentation. I'm going to go back to vertical angles. Remember, I put a star next to this one. Vertical angles are two angles whose sides are opposite rays. Our angles, and I need to erase this. Our angles 1 and 4, that's this guy here and this guy here, are those guys vertical angles? Just look at the picture. Raise your hand if you think that they are vertical angles. Okay. Raise your hand if you're like, I don't think they're vertical angles. And then raise your hand if you're like, I don't know if they're vertical angles. Okay, so some of you aren't participating at all. Okay, that's all right. Guess what? They are vertical angles. So this one's yes. Those are vertical angles. They're vertical angles because they are formed by opposite ray. The opposite ray of this one is this one. The opposite ray of this one is this one. And those two angles are formed by those opposite rays. So those are vertical angles. Yeah.
Could you say, like, yes, because angle 4 and angle 1 are the same?
The same measure?
Yeah.
Almost. The reason you can't say that is, and I can't really do a great answer for it here. Let me show. Can I go to this diagram down here? Do you see this angle here and this angle there? Would you agree that those two angles are congruent? They're the same measure?
Yeah.
You guys know what I mean by congruent. We talked about that last time. The measure of angle. Well, here, let's not get into that. So those two angles are congruent. Agreed? Are they vertical? They're not. Vertical angles have to be across from one another. Now, you're absolutely right. I think a good way for you to find vertical angles, like up here in this diagram, is just look at angles that are like across from one another and are congruent. So you're right. In this example, you are correct. What I was trying to show you down here is these two angles are congruent, but they are not vertical. Okay, so let's go to part 3 there. Part 3. Are angles 4 and 5 complementary? Are these two guys complementary?
No.
Why not, Anthony?
Because they don't add up to 90.
Correct. So no, don't add to 90. Perfect. In fact, Anthony, what do they add up to?
180.
Why?
Because they're self-aligned.
Why? You're doing great. You're saying all the right things. One more thing. You're right. They are supplementary. They are blah, blah, blah. Do you remember linear pair? That's the key concept there. Okay. If you look at these two angles together, what do they make? They make a line. We call them a linear pair, therefore they have to be 180, therefore they have to be supplementary and all those good things. Okay? So now I'm going to ask you guys for this one. Who can tell me an angle that's supplementary to angle DOB? DOB. Yes, sir.
DOA.
Okay, so DOB is this angle here, and now the question is and what did you say, what angle?
DOA.
DOA, so this angle here? Do you guys, would you guys agree that those angles are supplementary? The red one and the blue one? Supplementary means they add up to 180, correct?
Yeah.
So let's just guesstimate. What do you guys want to guesstimate the red measure to be? How many degrees do you think that red angle is?
160.
About 160. That's a good answer. Anybody want to take a stab on what they think the measure of the blue angle is? Well, it makes a straight angle, doesn't it? So that's 180. So when we add those two together, I don't think that's 180. Can anyone tell me an angle that is supplementary to angle DOB? Ronan. AOB. Okay. Angle A. Oops, let me write it. Angle AOB. Now, I'm going to erase this stuff down here for a second, and this stuff over here. Erase all of that. And remember, we were talking about angle DOB, which is this guy right here, correct? The answer that was given was angle AOB, and that is correct. Can anyone tell me a different answer that is also correct? And it not angle BOA, I already know that. Yes. Correct. Or you could put angle DOE, and this is where Mr. Allen has to be very careful when I give you the quiz next week. Sometimes there's more than one correct answer. But both of these answers, I want you to notice something. The angle that was just given here was this angle right here, correct? Look what those two angles form when you put them together. What did they form? A line, or a straight angle, or a linear pair. Linear pair. Linear means line, pair means two. Two angles that make a line, right? That's a linear pair. They are supplementary. Does that make sense? Is this helping? Okay. I think I'm going to stop there for now.